Hey folks, wanted to show some of the progress on my breadboarded Eurorack module. For anyone unfamiliar with this project, the goal here is to have a module that will detect changes over time in a given input signal. So what I have on this board is that circuit. A couple of things I'll point out, if I can do this in a way that's visible. This pot is the input pot. It would represent just a 3.5 millimeter jack once the system module. This pot is the sensitivity pot. Essentially, it's how much change needs to happen before the output changes, or before the output triggers as having had a change. This button, of course, is a trigger. Again, that would be a 3.5 jack on the Eurorack that accepts gate or trigger inputs. I've got it configured through a gate to trigger circuit. And then these two LEDs are the outputs. The red one represents an output if nothing changed, and the blue one represents an output if something changed. So if I trigger it a few times, we'll see that nothing changed. But if I change the voltage, you'll see that green LED show that there's been some change back there. Now, the first time, the blue one flashed, representing something changed, and then we're back to nothing changed. Until I change the voltage again, whatever direction I want to change it, and then we get the same sort of sequence of one flash for change, and then an unbounded number of flashes for no change. Every single time I trigger, it's just comparing it to the last time it was triggered, and sending it out the rest of the way. In terms of how this circuit is constructed, for anyone who might be interested, basically this 555 timer is what's ultimately getting triggered when you press the button. That does two things. First, it triggers some output logic. So the output logic takes whether something was changed going through this LM339 comparator and a NOT, an inverter here. Logic inverter gives us two outputs, something changed or something didn't change, corresponding to which LED is out, and then the 555 timer in one-shot mode is also gating the output. So this AND chip is telling us it changed and the gate's high, or it didn't change and the gate's high, and that's what triggers one of the LEDs. The other thing it does is at the end, going through a little bit of delay circuitry in here. Most of the rest of these inverters and this NOR gate are used for some edge detection, which lets us find out when the end of that trigger happens, and that causes a sample and hold chip LF398 to go off, which updates our sample and goes through the rest of the circuitry. The sensitivity knob is potentiometer rather is sending into the inverting input of the LM339 comparator, which gives us output that is very sensitive if that voltage is low and toward zero, or very insensitive if that voltage is high. I have it configured here to go from 0 to 6 volts, and if we go to the high end of sensitivity, very, very sensitive, we'll see that green LED comes on. Now we get no change, but I can swing this change quite a ways around and still get no change. On the flip side of that, if it's down at 0, every single voltage is going to be a change, even if I haven't really changed it just because of noise. So typically some sensitivity makes sense. In practice, my goal here is that for signals that may be changing more or less quickly with respect to the triggers, that you'll be able to adjust how sensitive you need that triggering to be for changes. More sensitive is probably going to be great for things like checking for a semitone change. You only want 1/12 of a volt of change to be enough. The less sensitive side, you might be like extracting rhythms from some LFO or some other modulation source that's kind of going all over the place, and it's going to be changing relatively slowly with respect to quarter notes, but you probably still want to check it. Still keep it not changing every single time you click it if you want to get some sort of polyrhythm or something out of that. Yeah, that's what I've got working.